Nowadays, I fire people. I fired one client last month. They didn't even make it 2 months in, but the way they talked to my staff and scope creep and demanding a lot of things that we never agreed to, I let them go within, a month and a half, where before I would suffer those clients for a year because you always hear the customer's always right. And it sounds stupid to give up good income.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fun one. Our guest is the founder and owner of Specialty Bookkeepers, Tyler Otto. Welcome to the show.
Hey, sir. Thank you so much. I'm excited to come join you all today.
Hey, we love having guests on our show, even better when they know a little bit about the bookkeeping industry, which you do. And with that, let's hear about you. Tell us about your career journey leading up to this point.
Yeah, so Specialty Bookkeepers were the outsourced bookkeeping and tax firm for a large section of the hospitality industry. That's our sweet spot. The backstory, as you asked, basically, I used to be in corporate hotel finance. So I was corporate director of finance for an asset management company. I was with 5-Star Luxury. And my wife, who has a master's degree in biomedical engineering, one day decided she wanted to do something new. And she's like, I think I'm going to start a bookkeeping firm. And I was like, yeah, I can help you with whatever you need to learn along the way, whatever you don't learn from online programs. Fast forward to 2020, and I don't know, world events happened, and it wasn't great for hotels. They really suffered. The company I was with had to sell off a lot of their contracts. And I was at a point where that company I knew was going to go under. And the question was, do I look for another role in corporate America? Or my wife and I, after 3 years of her doing a small $20,000 a year side hustle, we said, do we take this bookkeeping firm full time? So I essentially usurped my wife's company. She gave me the reins. We started selling like crazy, went from wondering if we can pay our mortgage in January and February of 21 to hiring our first team member in May. And now we're 3.5 years in, we're 15 employees deep, and we're going.
That's amazing. So exciting. Congratulations on that. I love hearing some of those early start things. What did you decided to take the reins over from with, I guess it's like you're holding the reins together.
She's still my boss.
Yes, of course. She was a great hire on her part. Let's say that, right?
She's the most successful owner out there, right? She found someone to take over the company and just make her money. That's the dream that we're all hoping for.
That's right. Absolutely. So good for her. So what was that like? You decided to take the reins. What were some of the first things you started doing differently?
Well, first thing is just start telling all my industry contacts, right? Like, hey, we're starting out this firm. I was lucky enough to, around Thanksgiving 2020, be given notice by my employer that they were going to sell off their contracts and close down. And I was given, 2 months notice before I lost a paycheck and 5 months notice before I was going to lose health insurance. So I lucked out. Like, most people don't get that sort of golden runway to start a business where you got health insurance covered for 5 months. But at that point, I start telling everyone I know in the industry, hey, we're going to start outsource bookkeeping and accounting. The thing you have to remember during the pandemic is everyone was so scared, and like, why would you want to build an accounting firm that goes specifically after hotels when they're the ones struggling? But there were hotels that, they were going to go out of business. But there were other hotels that maybe were paying an internal staff person 70, 80K a year to run their whole finance. And they were looking to cut costs. If they could find an outsourced option for 30 grand a year, all of a sudden we seem like a great deal. So in times of, economic change, as long as you're ready to position yourself right, we found our way into the industry. But Yeah, I learned a lot during that year, and I learned a lot by failing, doing things the wrong way first. Right? It's like my kid. They learn not to touch the stove, not because I told them not 60 times, but because they burned their hand once. It's the same thing with me, where I learned a lot by getting burned that first year.
Wow. And always love to hear some of the burn stories. What were some of your now favorite burns?
Oh, I mean, pricing too low was one of them. Taking on work, back in my corporate life, I did a lot of writing automations between different programs. This was like pre-Zapier. So I was like writing back-end code to make systems talk to each other or kick off automations. And we would have clients come to us with needs like that. I was like, oh, yeah, I can build it. But you can't build a bookkeeping firm, an accounting firm around a really specialized technical skill set. And so I was building myself a job rather than a company because anytime anything needed update or breaking, I couldn't hire it out. It was all my
Mm,
stuff. So that was mistake number one. I didn't think I could find a single employee in the world that I could trust to bring in to do this. So I hired my sister-in-law, which she is a great person, lovely. But I think we both realized long term that's not what she wanted to do. But I hired family because I knew I could trust when really I should have gone into the industry and try and find the people that were right for the role. Yeah, I said pricing low. I said, selling clients on my resume rather than what our firm did, because when I start hiring those first few employees, they almost seem to get miffed that it wasn't me working on their account anymore. It was someone else and they felt bait and switched. There
hmm
is just, man, I could go on for hours, whether it's registering in states and not having the right forms or yeah, across the board. But that's business ownership, is you gotta be ready to take the punches because they come hard and they come fast.
Yeah, no, that's good. Let's just pause on the staff one there. Dig into that a little bit. So you brought in a staff member and then handed over, and they felt miffed, and kind of disrupted the. Did you lose them? What was the outcome? How did you solve it?
So first off, I guess I overgeneralize because, with one client's angry, you feel like they all are. Really, it was a small
Of course.
subset of my clients. But there were a couple that they, all of a sudden start saying, hey, we're not hearing from Tyler as much. And this is not what we signed up for. And for some reason, they think they hired me and not my firm. Um, and that was a problem. Like, you can't scale if the clients assume they're going to get the owner 24/7. So I
Yeah.
think, there were those issues. But honestly, the clients that complain, now I'm far enough into this journey to know that those were my bad clients. Those are the ones that needed to go anyways. Nowadays, I fire people. I fired one client last month. They didn't even make it 2 months in, but the way they talked to my staff and scope creep and demanding a lot of things that we never agreed to, I let them go within, a month and a half, where before I would suffer those clients for a year because you always hear the customer's always right. And it sounds stupid to give up good income. So I think, that whole piece of just finding good clients and communicating early on that you're hiring the firm, not Tyler Otto, those are probably some of my bigger misses. But I don't know. If I did it all over again, I'm not sure exactly what I would change. Maybe then just the presentation of our services of how it's going to get done and who's going to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's part of I think it's great learning for anyone who hasn't gone through that journey yet, or people who are going through it right now. It's great learning, but it's kind of hard to anticipate and prepare for. You don't know what tomorrow looks like, right? When you started
Hmm.
out, you had a vision and view of the world and what your business might look like. But I think it's very interesting, and I love the concept of, yeah, people complain, and the knee jerk reaction is to go and fix the problem, but maybe the
Hmm.
problem is the client, and that's
You're hitting the
everybody
nail on
makes
the
it.
head.
Yeah, everybody makes it.
Well, for those of us that have come from corporate America, you have one boss, maybe, a couple others you semi report to in the C suite, but like what they said goes. So if they say jump, you say how high. If you want to improve, if you want to progress, you've got to keep your boss happy. Now I'm in this world of, I don't have 100 bosses yet. We've gone after bigger ticket clients, but I've got, 60, 70 bosses. And I can decide which ones that, no, that's not reasonable. And you know what? It's okay. We're done with you. And that is a hard thing to get your head around. Once you grasp it and realize that like I'm going to have some natural attrition. Some clients aren't going to like how we change our processes or streamline things or raise our prices because we need to pay our staff more and I want to take care of the team. Like you're just going to have natural attrition. No one that has had a W-2 and tried to climb the corporate ladder can just emotionally resonate with that day one starting a business. That is hard thing to internalize.
Absolutely. People pleasers, right? I mean, it's not even go back. It goes beyond the corporate, it goes right back to childhood, right? We have parents, what they say goes, teachers, we've learned to comply. And also we want things to go well. We want people to be happy. And yet the worst thing we could probably do is to try and help the people that will never be happy, because certainly there's benefit. Like, hey, I made this person happy. I improved some things. I did things differently that other people will like. However, the focus might have been, becoming unfocused, what really matters, or going through unnecessary stress. I think it's a real good one for people our listener right now to really get that. Again, we can tell you till we're blue in the face, but you got to touch the stove and go through it, right? To really, to get to that point where you're like, you know what, you're leaving. Okay, I don't like it. I'd rather have people stay, but it's like the new book. It's like stop pleasing people, or don't please anyone, or it's something that people have to go through. But love that. So that was a big one, and I really love that. Then you talked a little bit about pricing too low. Again, another classic mistake. How did you turn that one around? Was it challenging? Where did you go with it?
Well, I mean, I think all of us, when we start our businesses, we're wondering, can we make this work? Can we make ends meet without killing ourselves? And early on, when you feel that panic of a month or two goes by, it feels like a year that you're not signing that many clients. And the first 2 clients are the hardest. Like anyone that's looking to start a firm, the first 2 are the hardest 2 to find, to do, because also you've got idle time. So you're acutely aware of how little work you have. But that being said, initially you'll take on anyone that fog a mirror and pay you something because it's better than nothing. And so I remember when my minimum fees was $250 a month. And then it was, give it a little while, $350 a month. Then it was $500. Slowly and slowly, that's continued to grow. Now, our advertised minimum is $950 a month. But to be honest, my average client is $2,200. And like, I've had a couple I've prospected recently that they're $1,100, $1,200 a month. And I kind of try to talk them out of it. Like, I'm just like, hey, you sure you know what you're signing up for? Because they think we're the most expensive thing in the world. And they're one of our lower end clients. And I'm like, without telling them, you're not going to be our priority. The $4,000 to $5,000 a month clients are. I don't want to say that to them, but I also want to remind them like, hey, here's the scope. We're not your miracle worker, do everything for you. Because for some reason they think at $12,000 a year, they're getting a full-time employee, and good luck finding that anywhere.
Oh, beautiful. The where you're at in business is where people want to be, right? You're on the other side of the mountain skiing down the slope, and it's beautiful powder. Getting up there is challenging, but if only people could act the way you're acting in a sales call, where have the confidence and you're basically reverse closing, saying, look, I don't know if this is a fit for you. You're not going to be the one we're going to be paying attention to. It's like, that's just like, it's like desirable to firms. They want to work with the best, right? And so that strategy probably repels the people that are not good fits for your business. And then when they do come on, they're great. They fought to have you as their client or as their partner, right? Versus the reverse, where you start out, you need, at the fog of the mirror test. Great. The relationship in your head and as well in their head is that you need them more than they need you. You've turned that up on your head. And I think that's another one of those ones you can't get there till you have that deep in your soul, where you really have the confidence and knowledge that it's the truth, right?
But I mean, I don't know. I look at it, this whole business ownership sales, it's like dating. Because we are not selling a product, we are selling a service, we are selling a relationship. And because we're selling a relationship, we get emotionally invested in our clients. Well, it is a lot like dating, where early on you dated the wrong people for the wrong reason. Anyone that would fog a mirror that had an interest in you. And as you get further into it, both employees and clients alike, I would take on any employee that I could just trust. And I was just like, oh, you're willing to work for me? Great. Now we're super picky. We have a very restrictive hiring process. We get 400 applicants a week when we post a job because we're virtual only. But now we know how to be super picky about what we're looking for, and we're unapologetic for it. Same thing with clients now, where we used to get into abusive, bad relationships where we were taken advantage of, emotionally and verbally abused. Like, we got into bad situations, and now we're super picky. We know what we want out of a relationship, and we're not afraid to say no. Like, I don't care about the dollar. I care about enjoying this job every day. And same thing for my staff. I want to keep them around, not just because I think it's the right thing to do as a human, but also my staff's my greatest asset. If they hate working for me and they hate working with my clients, man, I'm going to have to inherit that work the moment they leave.
Beautiful. It's kind of almost a rite of passage. I mean, our listener, we want to help arm you with kind of the things that you're going to come across or encounter. However, some of this just can't happen until you go through
Yeah.
the experience, right? You're going to make mistakes, and mistakes are what lead to successes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more mistakes, make them fast, make them as often as you can. They're painful at times, but I absolutely love hearing you tell it, and it's just very clear. And you can hear some solutions in there, but again, I think it's that rite of passage. It's hard to get there. You needed those clients in your mind. You wanted them. You thought you needed to get them by the end of the month, or make your month. Eventually, that leads to making big mistakes. Some
Mm-hmm.
real cool ones. Any other ones that you can think of that were stingers or big for you when you're growing up, basically in business?
Um, I think I've failed at everything once. Um, I think, I first heard tons of smart people talking about get an executive assistant, get a virtual assistant. And I went to an outsourced company because I didn't know what to do. And I way overpaid for someone that gave me very minimal hours, and everything I asked for seemed to be out of scope. And I did it wrong. You know, After 4 months of suffering that, I went back to the drawing board, posted exactly what I wanted in a position. And now I've had assistant 2 years that pretty much runs my life. And I'm pretty sure my marriage is still intact because my assistant makes sure I don't miss things in my personal life. Like, she has revolutionized it. My wife and her, I think, are like long distance best friends now because they make sure I don't ruin either of their lives.
Right on.
Fantastic. I look at, trying to bring in someone to run, a bit more of operations so I could get that off my plate and focus on building the business. First time I brought in someone that I knew and respected, and he is a great human being. But because I respected him so much, I didn't want to micromanage him and teach him our way and like look down on him. So I kind of just let him run with it and his way. And he was making up his went, but he didn't have all the learnings I didn't. So like, I poorly implemented and handed stuff off. It ultimately didn't work out for both of us. Now I'm going through it a second time, and I'm promoting someone that has been with me several years, and she knows our systems and process. She's everything. And like, we're getting it right now, whether it's a rollout of our client portal, whether it's how we do recons. Like, I feel like I've made the mistake every time. And really, it's just, as I said earlier, it's getting ready to roll with the punches. You're going to have a lot of failures as you build your firm. Michael Jordan has lost more basketball games than I will ever play. Everyone considers him the best of all time, but he's had more failures than I can ever imagine. That's how he got to that many successes. And if you want to be successful, you got to be able to take all those failures in stride.
Beautiful. Yeah, well said. Well said. And so interesting hearing the replay of that. So now you've got your business rolling. You're up to 15 staff, I think you said.
Yep.
What are some of the things you're working on now in your business? What's next for you?
Yeah. So a couple things going on. First and foremost, the big push was get me out of sales. As I continue to grow this thing and be the technical expert, I love systems automations, dreaming about how we can rebuild this and make it more efficient. And that takes time. Supporting my staff takes time. And I was finding I would have less and less time slots available for sales, which was hindering the amount of clients we can even bring in because I couldn't do consultations. So we're a month and a half, almost 2 months in on having a salesperson, and she's about to spread her wings and start taking sales calls by herself. And like, that's number one, get me out of the operations, or just the remove me as a cog that's required to make the machine run, right? You want the machine to be able to run without me. The other one, as I said, is I am promoting someone now to try and take over day-to-day operations so that I can work on it. The big things now for us is, we've had a really small tax practice, just kind of, we'll do taxes for any clients that want us to. Now we're going to go after hardcore. Let's build that out. And that's my job. And then the other one is, we have our own podcast. I'm getting speaking gigs, not because I want to grow it as a revenue stream, but I notice the more I talk on our podcast about the tools I love, the more I speak at conferences, those programs, those softwares, they want to get on my calendar and talk to me about what the future of their software should be. And so by putting yourself out there, by having your own platform, now getting the opportunity to shape the direction of the industry and the tools and resources that we love, getting involved in those conversations, that's our next big thing. I don't think I'm ever going to make a penny. I don't think I'm ever going to break even on our podcast, but it's getting us into conversations that we weren't invited in before. And so getting that influence with, the major softwares we know and love is probably our next big push to help us grow this thing in the direction we want.
That's great. Fantastic. And exciting. And yes, podcasts are great. We've been doing them for a while. It's exposure. It's exposure. And there's never been an easier time to put out a podcast, right? It's
true.
You just got to show up every week. The tools are there. It's not that complicated. So very cool. So that's exciting. So now you have 15 people. Let's talk a little bit about the work culture and what are some of the things you do to have people working together and, making it all work. You said you're virtual. Love to have kind of a lay of the land or what your business looks like.
Yeah. So 15 people, or at least I think we are as of today. I think the new one accepted the offer. And essentially, most of my staff is around bookkeeping operations. I have an admin assistant, the sales gal, and a marketing gal, and then everyone else is ops. And with that, the way that we operate is everyone works in a pod, in a group of three. This is not a novel process. I knew of outsourced firms that were doing this back when I was in the corporate world. But, to have a team aspect, B, coverage, should someone be out, someone get sick, someone get hit by a lottery ticket, however you want to refer to it, like you want that sort of coverage. My staff's entirely US based. That has been important to our clients. And it's important to me because with my very piss poor programming skills, I know what damage I can do. So I'm very restrictive on the data and everything we use, but we have entirely US based staff. And, the biggest thing for me is company culture. That's probably the number one thing I monitor, whether it's month-end surveys, talking to the staff. And really, to develop that culture, it's all about the relationships. And we're not in an office. You can't just all of a sudden chat by the water cooler or in the parking lot. You got to build in that time. Like building culture is a lot of intentionality, right? I mean, I'm sure, you've heard from a lot of firm owners, but right, like that intentionality is what drives the culture, right?
Absolutely.
And so for us, it's been several things. First, it's a lot of standing meetings on the books. We have twice a week, the all team morning lineup. I came from the hotel industry where you would have morning lineups, but instead that was the chance for the general manager to walk down the line of everyone there and make sure their shirt was pressed, their shoes are polished, and that they know the marching orders for the day. Now for us, it's still making sure everyone knows the marching orders, touching base on what they're working on. And sometimes we're just trying to make sure that, someone's online for the day and knows what they're working on. But like that sort of check-ins, first, just make sure other people care and that they're checking in. And then we do a question around the room. And sometimes it's goofy stuff. Sometimes it's, preferences. Sometimes it's if you could eliminate any one company on the planet, for what reason, why? Like nothing accounting related, just get to know your fellow employees. Apparently, there is a hot debate in our company of whether or not leggings constitute pants. As one of the few males, I stay out of the conversation, but that's the arguments that come out of it. So it's fun. It keeps the culture. It keeps the conversation. Because now in the team chats, you'll see jabs about leggings or, how much I mock the growing group of Texans. But creating those inside jokes, you've got to set aside the time for that. And so I'm a big of those standing meetings, one-on-one meetings with your staff. And in all these meetings, video on, right? Like how often do we hear those statistics of how much of communication is nonverbal? You need to see people's reactions, how they respond, them showing interest, nodding their head in approval. Like all those things play into building those relationships. We're huge on it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's so interesting, the way video is now with virtual meetings. They're all the time, everywhere. And that's an art form in itself and evolving,
Mm-hmm.
I think, definitely evolving. It's so, when you were building this out, did you notice any challenges along the way with the staff or the culture, or did you just run it this way from the start?
No, no, no. As with everything, I failed
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah.
Um, I started this company saying everyone, it's a flexible job, work when you want. And then we had really bad problems with people not logging in until 2 a.m. asking a question. And I would see it the next day at noon, respond, but then they wouldn't respond again till 2 a.m. when they were online. And then, like they didn't understand the question. So like all of a sudden feedback on a simple back and forth would sometimes take 48 hours. That it didn't need to. That could have been a quick in the moment. So we went from being a work whenever firm to no, we need to be available during business hours, 9 to 5-ish. And we adopted core operating hours, 10 to 2 central, trying to make it easy where it's like, okay, no matter which coast you're on, that's a 4-hour window almost anyone can get behind.
Beautiful.
We had to do things like that. The morning lineup, we had issues early on with some employees that would just like always phone in from their car. And like you could tell they weren't interested. They were just doing whatever else. And we had to set expectations like, no, be present, be there to talk to your team and work together, not just, it looks like you're giving us, the last bit of attention you have available in the moment. And by the way, your kids are screaming in the back seat. We can hear the radio on. Like,
Yeah.
all these things where I
Yeah.
tried to set, a very loose environment, and we needed to put structure in place to make it so it was a respectful and productive environment.
Very interesting. And yeah, could totally see where all of those have experienced all of those myself. And it's almost like you're building a business that works around their life versus a business that, they work their life around your business. And everybody wants freedom, but at the same time, we need certainty as well. And without, two of those sometimes have to do a little bit of a dance to get into the right place. Sounds like you've done that now. When you switched and started implementing, just like when you had to change with clients, was there pushback? How did that go?
Man, you read my mind. That is exactly where I was going to go next. Because you're right. Some employees, they pretty much said this feels like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
And essentially I said, in some regard, it wasn't an intentional bait and switch. It was, here's what I thought would work. Turns out this isn't working and we've got to change. And if you want to change with us, great. But if you're telling me that you don't want to change, that's fine. This company can't work that way anymore. Things change over time. Companies have to adapt, evolve. I bet early on that we could work in this format and it's just not working out. We can't survive that way. So, you could leave the job now or you can be in unemployment in a couple months, if we don't change. Take your pick. And, we've lost employees over the years. One employee, actually maybe two, we've had to let go because despite us saying, here's how we do things now. And you feel bad because these employees, they took a chance on you, but like you can't set those precedents because then it's hard. You hire new staff, you say, here are the rules. And they're like, but what about this person? They're not following. It's like, well, they're grandfathered in for,
Yeah.
bad behavior. And it's just super hard. But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself the question, if the business could talk, what would it say it needs? Right? Take
A lot of
aside everything else.
expletives.
There you go. Yeah, of course. It's just like saying, you idiot. But
Yeah.
no, that is what you have to ask and take your ego out of it and just what does the business need right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So it is interesting, and that I could imagine. And then you get the people. Some people are going to meld to that or not, and they go their way. But it is the truth. Either there's change or the business doesn't succeed, bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So now we didn't talk much about your wife through this. You acquired, in a way, you took over leadership, let's say, of the business. What about your wife? How does she, where does she fit in? How has that gone? Is she completely out of it now? Does she, is she raising your children? What's going on there?
Yeah, she's still involved in the business. So she helps, a lot on the admin side, payroll, a lot of our bills being paid, reconciling our books. And, she does a lot on the internal side. Yeah, she stepped away. We have a 7 and a 3-year-old, and she has the harder job out of the two of us. So, we're not keeping too much on her plate, but this company probably would have never happened if she wouldn't have started it. But also she's keeping her hand involved in the company, because I know once the kids are fully back in school, that 3-year-old is gone middle of the day. I know she's going to want to come back. And so as we're building out our tax advisory side, she's doing all the trainings with me and getting involved there. So yeah, we're keeping it a little bit of a family biz.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, that's just wonderful. This has been just a delightful conversation, hearing your journey, and thank you for being so transparent and sharing both the things that worked and also the ones that didn't. Sometimes people are afraid to share that they've made mistakes, and it's a sign of character and the willingness to provide that information so that others don't go through it. I'd love to hear if there's anything you'd love our listeners, if they want to learn more about you or listen to your podcast, anything like that, please let us know. We'll get the links in the show notes.
Yeah. Depending on when this airs, I'll be at Scaling New Heights in BKX. So if anyone's there and you've heard this, love to me. I'll be speaking at BKX or Intuit Connect, which I don't know why they changed the name. Like QuickBooks Connect, at least alliterated, or you could have been Connect into it, like into it. Like what? Man, they botched that. Anyways. I'll be at those. And then, you can go to tylerotto.com if you want to see, learn more about me or any of the small courses we've done just on Excel, or unaccountable.co, the Unaccountable podcast. We try to do accounting news in a game show format to keep it fun. And
Nice.
then you can get CE from listening. So we're a couple of goofballs, definitely less professional than you, but we have fun doing it.
Hey, that's awesome. I'm sure our listeners will check it out, and it sounds like fun. Tyler, this has been great. Want to thank you. Congratulations on all the learnings throughout your career, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again, I'm sure, with whatever you're working on next.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
My pleasure. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest, to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.